Welcome back to the Disrupt Desk. We're here to catch you up on everything you might have missed from the Disrupt stage. Right now, we're going to be talking AI, hardware, and space. And speaking of space, I'm going to bring on my fellow astronaut, breaking news editor, Daryl Etherington. What's up, Daryl?
Hey, there's an extremely technical definition of astronaut that I do not fit. I just want to say for the record, but I love space, and one day I'll be there, maybe.
Is it your eyesight that precludes you?
No, it's just like you have to jump through some specific hoops before I think it's NASA like actually issues the thing, but you know.
Okay, I'm no longer
very
interested.
technical.
Okay, great. So speaking of space, now is a great time to plug one of our other events. If you guys can, pardon me when I do this. TechCrunch Sessions Space is coming up on December 14th through 15th. Peter Beck will be back with a more technical kind of interview. The show looks amazing, Daryl.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. We're going to cover a whole lot of ground. We're going to talk about some pretty far out there stuff like lunar exploration, but we're also going to talk about stuff closer to home, like doing business on orbit, which more and more companies are interested in. And as you mentioned, yeah, Peter Beck will be back, and he'll be kind of like getting a bit more nerdy engineering over there. So we're excited about that. And in general, yeah, it's going to be a great time. It's going to be based on last year. It's exciting for people who are already interested in space, but it's also exciting for people who like maybe are interested in space, maybe thinking about founding a business there or working in that industry and want to find out more about it.
Yeah, I hear you guys are even going to do something on space debris tracking, which is particularly sexy. So I'm looking forward to the show. Tickets are available at techcrunch.com/events if you're interested in joining us. For now, Daryl, though, I thought we might check in with a couple of Startup Alley companies. The first one is called Yes Please. Let's go ahead and take a look at what Yes Please is working on.
We are making search and online shopping super easy. I am Ji-won, CEO and co-founder of Yes Please AI. You are shopping online for a pair of jeans. Do you know which keywords to type in? Most of the time, we don't know how to describe what we're looking for. And even if we do, it's unlikely we find a matching result. Why? Because shopping websites use all different jargons. Puffer jacket, padded jacket, and quilted jacket. And that's where Yes Please AI comes in. We are disrupting text-based search by using our visual search queries. It's not a camera search. It's a solution that's instant and customizable. You simply tap our visual search mannequin, tap the neckline to be round neck, V-neck, tap the waist to be fitted and relaxed, and you get exact matches. We already partner with retail partners transforming their search experience. Come and visit our booth. We'll show you how it works.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's super exciting.
Daryl? Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen a bunch of stuff like this. You first, please.
Well, I worked at Shopify, right? And this was actually a huge problem that we had was there's no real taxonomy or existing kind of like categorization for things like clothing items, right? Like it's kind of like really pell-mell like what is out there in terms of classifying that data. So if they've got a way to classify that and organize it in a sane manner and then also associate it with images, like to me it feels like the moment is now for like a Grace Note or something. They built a huge audio DNA database, which is massively valuable now, right? So if somebody can do that for products and clothing categories on the web, and maybe Yes Please can do it, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, we've seen a lot of startups like this try and kind of like not quite make it there, right? Whether it's visual search or it's kind of like categorizing the web. So it'll be interesting to see where Yes Please lands. We did catch up with another startup as well called Lawsy. Let me show you what Lawsy's working on. We'll get your thoughts.
Hi, I'm Jillian Baranoff, the founder of Lawsy, a mobile app that lets you ask lawyers like me your legal questions. We created Lawsy because adulting is hard. From purchasing your first home, fighting that pesky landlord, starting a business, to navigating a divorce or even a DUI. Life is full of challenges, good and bad. But don't worry, you're not alone. With Lawsy, get legal help without ever calling a law firm or going down another internet rabbit hole. Yep, I've been there too. Simply download Lawsy from the Apple or Google Play Store, select an area of law, ask your question, and check out. It's that easy. A qualified lawyer will answer your question right on the app in less than 48 hours. It's kind of like asking a friend for advice, except these friends have law degrees. So next time you're facing a life first or hiring a lawyer, back away from that Google machine and say hello to Lawsy.
Okay. Aside from the fact that she used the word adulting and Google machine, what are your thoughts on Lawsy? I know I have my own, but Daryl, what do you think?
I have thoughts. I mean, I'm lucky enough to come essentially from a family of lawyers, so I ask for a lot of free advice from them. But I know that it's a really tough thing to do if you don't have that accessible to you. I do think I have lots of questions. I mean, the main question is, how do they set up liability, right? Because that's the main thing that comes up if you're asking people for legal advice. It's like, well, I would like to be in a contractual relationship with you as your legal representative so that all that stuff is covered and there's like, professional relationships around who's liable for what. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's so many questions about the rate structure and stuff. Adulting is hard, and my other advice would be just try it. Maybe it's illegal. Just go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested, right? Because I think that like a lightweight version of hiring a lawyer would be great, right? Like I think there are issues like that where you just like need lawyer light. And it feels like, what was the company that what's his face came up with? Was it Justin? Who was it that came up with a law firm, an automated law firm?
Justin Kahn. I don't remember the name of the company.
Yeah, and I think that went well, and then it didn't go well. I can't remember specifically, so don't hold me to anything. But anyway, I think the idea of a light lawyer is good. It's just about how we go about it. But let's keep moving because it's the end of the day and I'm exhausted. Let's bring on our transportation editor, Kirsten Korosek. How are you doing, Keeks?
I'm great.
Awesome. Same. So we're going to break down some of the stuff that we saw earlier. As you know, Kirsten, SEC's Secretary Buttigieg couldn't be with us live. He just adopted twins, but he sent over that video, and he went over some of his thoughts on the evolution of the transportation sector. He didn't necessarily express strong opinions on anything. I was just curious about your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I just want to mention that I was so inspired by Daryl's print that's I tried to copy that. So this is for you, Daryl.
I appreciate it.
Unsurprisingly, Secretary Buttigieg, he talked about infrastructure, he talked about EVs, he talked about grants for innovation, and he talked about research, all the good stuff. I would probably say that infrastructure is going to be a difficult one. He did say that he mentioned a standing order, which is an important one, that federal regulators are now requiring manufacturers to report any crash involving a vehicle with an autonomous vehicle system or an advanced driver assistance system. What he failed to do, though, in what I really wanted him to talk about was, is the federal government going to flex its muscle, or is it going to stand back when companies like Tesla release what they're calling their FSD beta software into more and more owners' hands and putting this out on public roads? I mean, there is a safety implication there, and I kind of wanted to hear him talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that without you there to moderate, unfortunately, that's kind of what is to be expected of a politician, is to just kind of toe the line and not say anything too controversial. But maybe you'll get your answers eventually, Keeks. I hope you do. Let's move into some of the other panels from today. We talked to Kai-Fu Lee, who's, again, I've said this, one of the leading minds in the field of artificial intelligence. And he described what's happening with AI right now when it's at our fingertips in a pretty interesting way. Let's check it out.
I think we're actually getting tricked by AI right now because of the power of AI, that it is building a great objective function optimizer that helps the likes of Facebook and Google optimize their profits or revenue or click-through. and showing us content that causes them to make money. So they are tricking us now. And being so single-mindedly optimizing one function is a double-edged sword for AI. So it helps whoever programs it to get what they want, but it also potentially hurts other people, inadvertently perhaps, but nevertheless it does. So on the flip side, I think people are smart too. So they will see, if I behave this way, AI might think something else. So it's almost like a cat and mouse game. As long as AI continues to be single-mindedly optimizing one thing, it becomes a cat and mouse game by different programmers, like in deepfake, and between people who use it and are watched by it, et cetera, and the people who program it.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think about a lot, like when you're scrolling Instagram and you either purposefully look at something that you want to see more of, or you more often kind of scroll automatically past something you don't want to see anymore. And Kirsten, I'm just wondering, like, what are your thoughts on if we're aware of this AI and we're actually trying to game it ourselves, then what does that mean for the tech? And what does that mean for the people that are using that tech?
Yeah, I do think that he was onto something when he said that there is going to be probably a period of time, maybe even a long period of time, when there's this gaming going on. And the question is, like, how effective is the AI once that happens, and how does it evolve? And then my dystopian thought is, like, what happens when we give up? Like, what happens after that? But he did say one really important thing that I do want to flag. And he talked about how that as this cat and mouse game is going to continue to go on, as long as AI is single-mindedly optimizing for one thing. And I would just hope that companies that are looking to apply AI to physical objects, and for me, it's autonomous vehicles, that they're kind of considering this, because that's what we don't want, is like gaming autonomous vehicles.
Totally. Daryl, another question I have regarding kind of what Kai-Fu was talking about with AI is, how do we get our arms around something like AI if it's already here? Like, it feels far too late to regulate. That didn't intentionally rhyme, but, what can I say?
Well, I would say, it's never too late to regulate, is it? I think we should try, is what my argument would be. I think to Kirsten's earlier point, right? Like, if we're thinking about FSD and being out on the streets and in people's hands, like, that is an expression of AI in the real world that is very demonstrably able to have an effect on people, right? Like, Kai-Fu Lee's was probably maybe scarier in some ways, because at least when you're talking about, like, okay, let's put AI in this car and have it drive around, it's like everybody can see what the issue is there. Everyone can see what the potential threat is there. When you're talking about what Kai-Fu is bringing up, which is like, hey, guess what? Like, it's already everywhere, and it's already manipulating you. It's already changing the way that you think, and the way that, like Jordan just referred to, the way that you interact with your devices and with your peers. That means the time for regulation has passed. Like, we try to be very conservative. We talked about this a bit yesterday with how we regulate things in the United States in order to, like, allow a free market to do stuff and be cool. But at some point you got to say, like, okay, it's already out there. It's already changing significantly how people interact with each other. We need to get some draft regulation going. We need to start thinking about what are the laws, what are the constraints we put on legally, right? The ones we can put on.
I think we could totally make never too late to regulate some sort of, there's got to be a campaign.
Got to be a shirt at the very least.
I would feel like.
Yeah.
Great shirt.
Yeah,
great shirt.
I like it. Speaking of regulation, we had a chat with Peloton earlier today, and Brian asked CEO John Foley about the recall of the tread after there had been some safety concerns. Let's check out what John had to say in response.
From my perspective as one of the founders, the framing of the category wasn't good enough. What the category thought of as safety wasn't good enough. And so now, we thought, let's just bring treads to market as they've been from a hardware perspective, the best treads, the best design, but looking at the safety that's been in the market in the category for decades. And what we learned is that we need to be better. Peloton, we're better in almost everything. Now we need to be better in safety. And we're excited about that. We've already launched a lot of new safety features, including the access code, where you can't start a Peloton tread without a 4-digit code that only you would know that your children can't start the treadmill. That was a great new innovation and industry-leading tread or safety feature.
Just so much pass the buck going on in that clip. He essentially said, well, we built it with the same standards as every other treadmill, so it's not really our fault, right, that it wasn't safe. What do you think about that, Daryl?
Well, I mean, a few questions come to mind. The number one is like, why then are you singled out in this way, right? Like, what is it about your product? And maybe it's scale, and maybe that's the actual answer. I mean, I didn't get the chance to ask him, right? Like maybe there have been incidents previously too, but no one's operating at the scale of shipment and manufacturing that they're operating at, where it starts showing up in significant numbers. I think the other one is just, it really rankles me to hear that, because it's kind of like, then the solution that he brought up, for instance, right? Okay, I don't think that solution required that people died in order to arrive at that conclusion, right? It's a sort of thing where if you had built safety as a priority into the product from day one, and you were looking to advance on that as much as you were looking to advance on sort of other aspects of the experience, then you probably would have come up with something like a pin, right? And so, yeah, it wasn't a great answer. I think in general, he wanted to get away from that as quickly as possible, which of course he did. Of course, yes, that makes sense, but not very satisfying as an answer.
Yeah, and when you say like, we learned that as Peloton we're supposed to do everything better, it's like, isn't that core to wouldn't you want to start from a place of better? But Kirsten, I wanted to talk to you about this too, because I feel like you have a more bird's eye view. When startups are launching products in a new industry, kind of like with Peloton and the tread, how do you balance learning from competition and clicking copy paste on the stuff that really works while avoiding the mistakes that they make, which you might not have complete transparency into?
Yeah, I see this a lot in the transportation side of things. And, you might have deep insight into the competition or the industry, but like you just said, you can't copy paste, meaning that even if you're really understanding what the company is doing, it has nothing necessarily to do what you're trying to do. So awareness is important, but ultimately you need to stay on mission. You need to stay on your business model, especially if you're trying to disrupt the industry, which is what Peloton was, trying to do.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And Kirsten, you are knocking it out of the park this show, and thank you so much for being on the Disrupt Desk with me. You're a vision in green. Daryl, I would choose maybe a different color for tomorrow if I were you. Thank you to both of you for hanging out with us.
Thanks.